The Torah says, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana, Vayimei Yaakov shnei chayav sheva shanim ve'arbaim shana. Yaakov is 147 years. So the first thing we find over here is that it describes it, Vayechi Yaakov. He lived in the land of Mitzrayim. He lived in Mitzrayim. And we always got to keep in mind that maybe a little bit. We always have to keep in mind that real life, is life of Ruchnias. It says that the Rishoyim are considered dead even while they're alive. Tzaddikim, even after death, they're considered living. So if Vayechi Yaakov Eretz Yisrael, the first thing is realize, even though he's in the land of Egypt, Yaakov Avinu lived the life of Ruchnias. He's got the life of a Torah. Otherwise, he can't be described as living. You're only alive if you're living a life of Ruchnias. I told you I saw a picture of the Rolling Stones doing a concert, and they're somewhere in their 60s or 70s. They look like sacks of flesh. They look like sacks of flesh that have had their souls vacuumed out of them. That's what they look like. You can describe them as being alive. That's life. I mean, the guy looks like he's just absolutely, somebody just went and all that hasn't happened. They just haven't died yet. That's all. That's the only difference. But yeah.
What does Ruchnias mean?
Ruchnias means spirituality. Life of spirituality, life of connectedness to something. The word. See, the problem is spirituality. Spirituality has too much of a little bit of spirituality. I like to call it purposefulness. A life with purpose and focus, right? As I say, we happen to be what we call it in a pure translation of Ruchnius is something spiritual. Torah is very Ruchni, it's very spiritual, but it gives purpose. So Yaakov Avinu, first of all, he lives in Egypt for 17 years. Now, what's interesting is that the word Yaakov Avinu, how old was Yosef when he departed? 17. Very good. He was 17 when he was kidnapped, and then Yaakov lives another 17 years in Egypt. Now, Yaakov's life, from the time that Yosef was gone until Yosef was born, Yaakov's life is when Yosef is alive. Yosef is 17 years he has with Yosef, then he has another 17 years of Yosef, which is his real life was the 34 years that Yosef is in his presence. Take a look at the first word of the Parsha. Vayechi. Vav is 6. Yud is 10, 16. Ches is 8, it's 24, and the leather Yud is 10, it's 34. 34 years of Vayechi, those are the 34 years that he lived. His real life was the 17 plus 17 that he was when he knew where Yosef was. So Yaakov Avinu lives in Mitzrayim. Now, turn back for a moment. He dies when he's 147. And then, just turn back for a moment. Vayave Yosef, the 2 lines from the bottom on page 262. It says, Vayave Yosef as Yaakov Aviv Vayamideh lifnei Pharaoh. Yosef brings Yaakov, his father, puts him before Pharaoh. Vayavarech Yaakov as Pharaoh. Yaakov gives Pharaoh a bracha. Vayomer Pharaoh Yaakov, Kama yemei shnei chayecha. How old are you? That's a rude question. You can't go up to, hi, sir. Hi, especially women. Women are always very high. I don't know what they're hiding their age for, even a listen lady. We were all born sometime. So how old are you? Excuse me. You want me to Google you? I mean, I got to find out nowadays. Nothing's hidden. I can do anything I want. How old are you? Right? But it's still considered rude. Hi, what's your name? Yaakov. How old are you? Whoever asks that. Whoever asks questions like that. All right, in Israel, things are much less formal than in America. In America, you meet somebody, you talk about all sorts of... In Israel, when you meet somebody, hi, what's your name? What do you do how much do you make? How much do you pay for your apartment? How much money do you owe? In Israel, that's considered very standard, right? How much are you in America? You never ask somebody, hi, how much do you make? How much have you got saved up? How did you get a dira? How did you get an apartment? No, here it's all very, oh wow, is that what is your wife has a job? Good job, what does she make? Nobody asks how much you make in America. I don't know why it's so secretive, but that's true. Here, it's not even how much you make, it's do you get paid on time? That's all standard. Did they ask somebody their age? It's unheard of. Why is he asking Yaakov his age? So the commentaries say, when Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, the famine ended. And Pharaoh is the king, and he says, all of a sudden the famine ended 5 years prematurely. And he sees Yaakov, and he understands it's in the merit of Yaakov, but he sees Yaakov is very old and frail. says, how old are you? Like he's getting nervous. Like, I don't want you to die because, we're doing well over here since you've come. That's how the commentators explain the plain meaning of the pasuk. And look at Yaakov's answer. Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, Yemei Shnei Megurai, the years of my life, Shloshim U'Me'as Shana, 130, that's how old he was when he came to Mitzrayim. Me'at v'roim ayu shbnei chayai, very few, and they were difficult years. V'lo hisigu es yemei shnei chayai avosei b'mimigrim. They're not come close to the lives of my forefathers. Yitzchak lived to 180, Avram lived to 175, and the only reason Avram didn't live to 180 was so that he wouldn't see Esav's misbehavior. Esav went off the derech when Avram was 175. So Hashem took him to do him a favor, so he doesn't have to get any aggravation by seeing Esav's misbehavior. So Yaakov calms Pharaoh down. He says, listen, I'm older than I look. I'm really 130. I'm not yet near the age of my parents when they're going to, at that age, which is the age Yaakov is supposed to die. But he doesn't die at 180. Yaakov dies at 147. That's the first pasuk over here. Why does he die? So the Gemara says, Chazal say, because of the 33 words that he spoke to Pharaoh over here, that he complained about how hard his life was. Because of those 33 words, he lost a year for every word. And therefore, he ends up dying at 147. Okay, there's only one problem, gentlemen. There's only one problem. It's a glaring problem. Count the words in the pasuk where it says Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. Count those words. Count the words in that pasuk. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. The pasuk where Yaakov complains about how old he is and I had a difficult life is only 25 words. Yet the Medrash says because of 33 words, he died. He died prematurely. But he only said 25 words. So we're missing 8 words, right? Look at the previous pasuk. Vayomer Paro el Yaakov, Kami mei shnei chayecha. Why did Pharaoh ask? Why did Pharaoh ask?
Because he looked.
He looked at it. In other words, okay, we're talking about Yaakov Avinu, so we understand we're talking about a very high level. Any normal person who went through what Yaakov went through would have died long before that. But the Torah is saying, Yaakov Avinu, at your level, don't wear it on your slave. Why can we read it on your? Why is somebody looking at you and say, "Ooh, what have you been through?" Right? What have you been? Okay, so one thing, if you've been through it, you see the bruises on the outside. But a person who looks regular and you just see all of his trials and tribulations written all over him. Why are you walking around? In other words, we're learning from Yaakov Avinu, there's a certain flaw in faith that a person has to understand. You got to take the bad with the good. Nobody gets through life without challenges. It doesn't exist anywhere. Nobody gets through life without challenges. They're going to happen. They're going to come. Hopefully there should be few. Hopefully they shouldn't be too difficult. But they happen. Just coming home and finding that dinner isn't ready is already a challenge. It's not pleasant. Now you have to make sure to control yourself. You don't get angry. You don't snap at your wife. Don't get upset with your kids. And then you go to work, and the boss is all over you, and it wasn't even your fault. There's certainly not as much fault as the boss thought, and you can't say anything, otherwise you're going to get fired. And if you're fired, you have even more aggravation. And then you get, and nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. So what is it? You can't get through life. You can go nuts if every little thing rattles you. I've been with cab drivers in Israel. So you have those cab drivers who are on the horn. It's on the horn. You'd think that it's the horn that accelerates the car. Everybody hits the car. That's the gas pedal over it. What are you on the horn? And no matter what's going on, the guy, she cut me out. He's all. And you have the other guys that are very relaxed. Usually they're older. The older ones, they're more relaxed. I've said to them, you don't seem to get too tense over here. Because listen, you can't get tense in this job. If you get tense in this job, you'll be a basket case in 10 minutes. You got to relax. Okay, you didn't get the ride you wanted. The customer wasn't there. The car cut you off. Okay, take it. That's all of life is like that. Just take it light, as a friend of mine used to say. He would say, take it light. Take it light. It doesn't. And the older you get, the more realistic you become. It just doesn't go so smooth. It just doesn't go. There are a lot of things. We're lurking at every corner. Your parnasa is difficult. Something's aching, and something and it doesn't feel well. Your mother-in-law comes for a longer visit than she said. All the things that can they can trigger it. And the Stipler says, see the Mesos. It's actually the Mesos Sharm. Mesos Sharm talks about how it's futile to think man's purpose is this world. Because he goes through a list of various forms of aggravation that a person has, just like I did. And the Stipler expands on it. The Stipler says, and at the end of the day, after all said and done, then a person is nifter. Nobody gets out of it alive. And the Stipler then says, there's one type of suffering that people go through, and it probably every single one of us at some stage. There's something in life that you want, and it's dafka the thing that you want most is the thing that you're never going to get. You get a guy comes over and says, I want to be a Kohen. I just would want, but you're not a Kohen. Yeah, but I want to be a Kohen. But you're and the guy, people lose sleep over things like this. I wish I was a Kohen. Why couldn't I have been a Kohen? I would like to be a Kohen. Hey, get on with it. What's the expression? Get past it, right? And there's always something, a guy says, I wish I was a chazan. I would like to be, a guy's got a voice. And he thinks that he's a great chazan, and he's got potential to be a chazan, and he doesn't have the potential to be a chazan. He could daven for the Yomad once in a while. He could sing Aleinu L'Shabbat. But listen, buddy, you're not going to be there. And the guy's trying his whole life. I know a man who I've known this man for over 30 years. He's been frustrated for 30 years because he thought goal was he was going to become the Rav of a community. He was going to be a community. He's a Baal Tshuva. Baal Tshuva started much later than everybody else. He thought that he was going to get smicha, and then he would just, with open arms, he'd be taken as the Rav of a community. He'll be the leader of the community. He doesn't have communication skills. He doesn't have people skills. He doesn't have oratorial skills. He doesn't have the Torah knowledge necessary. He's completely unqualified. He's just unqualified. And it's been eating him. It's been eating him for over 30 years. I know the man. He's a bitter, bitter person. Been eating him for over 30 years. I don't blame him. I understand where he's coming from. But that's everybody has it. You got a guy who goes to the army. I know there was a rabbi here in the yeshiva, had two brother-in-laws who were secular. He was married to Balas Tshuva. She has two high-caliber brother-in-laws. One of them flew F-15s for the Israeli Air Force. The other one wasn't quite as good. He only got into the helicopters. He flew a helicopter. He wasn't good enough. He just wasn't good enough to become an F-16 pilot. They both fly for El Al now. Both pilots for El Al. The El Al pilots are all former Israeli what do you call it? Military pilots. And I'm sure that the younger brother lives with a certain, I want to get in, the military decided you're just not quite there. You're good, but you're just not good enough. And a person lives with that frustration, that I wish I was something else, there's something I want, and you're never going to have it. That's part of that's what the disciple says. I used to say, I think Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, one of the great Musar leaders said, he said, try to become the Chafetz Chaim. If you become the Chafetz Chaim, you'll become Rabbi Zweig. Rabbi Zweig should try to become the Chafetz Chaim. One of the great Torah scholars in history, in the recent history. Rabbi Zweig will not become the Chafetz Chaim. But because he's always tried to become the Chafetz, that's why he's become Rabbi Zweig. But you have to be a person, every kid in America should try to become Babe Ruth. You won't be. You won't be. You want to be a professional, maybe you'll be Kyle Schwarber. But you won't. Kyle Schwarber wants to be Babe Ruth. That's great, because now he's becoming Kyle Schwarber. However, you have to be realistic enough in other words, you have to keep a perspective here. The perspective has to be, that's what I want, but use it as a motivation. This man didn't. This man destroyed. He was for a time. Then it just wrecked him. It derailed him. Because what we're trying to say is, realize that there's going to be challenges, and if you're going through that suffering, you want to be a chazan, you want to be a ball player, and it's just never going to happen, good. So use it to make yourself the best you can, and keep the suffering in perspective. Realize, just because you're going through that suffering, that's part of life. Life is like that. You have to deal with it like a mature adult, and don't let it derail you.
So keep a goal knowing that you're never going to reach it, but using it as motivation.
You should have realistic goals, and you should have the unrealistic goals. You have a realistic goal, I know what I can achieve. Small increments where you can achieve them. There should be a long-range goal. I would really like to get that level. But don't allow, most Avrechim that I know have some fantasy of becoming the next Reb Chaim Kanievsky. The odds are highly against all of them. But it's because they have that goal that they push themselves. But if you really cross that line into where, if I don't, I'm a wreck, then you've gone too far. And it requires a maturity of perspective. Here we're talking about the maturity to realize, listen, the fact that I know there's something that I want, and I'm never going to have it, that hurts. I have to keep that pain into perspective and realize that's part of life. That's all part of it. That's also a kapara. That's a kapara. Kosh Baruch Hu has sent me an atonement for my sins. That's a kapara, no different than chas v'shalom, person getting his fingers caught in the door. It's a kapara of sorts, right? And a person has to understand, but a person has to realize you're not the only one in history who's felt that way. Everyone feels that way. Everyone feels that way. Every single ball player who's sitting on a bench in the NBA wants to be playing. He wants to be starting, and there's some guys who are never going to be taking it. They're never going to start. You're never going to start. You're always going to be second. You're never going to be the best one. There's something you're never going to have. The guys who retired and never won a championship, Dan Marino never won a championship. Never won a championship. He didn't even play for Philadelphia. Right? Philadelphia's never won a championship, right? And Charles Barkley never won a. I'm sure that these guys, there's a certain, at some point, it's like, boy, when am I ever going to? You're never going to get that. You're, yeah, well, that was the basketball, not the Super Bowl. Barkley didn't win. Did Barkley win with Philadelphia? He didn't win with Philadelphia. Barkley never won. Dr. J won with Bobby Jones and what's his name, and Hal Greer and Andrew Toney. What's his name? Moses Malone, yeah, with Moses. Moses came and they had a redemption, yeah. But until that point, Barkley, you understand, there's always somebody in life. There's a woman on the block who bakes great. I'm telling you, this goes on for everybody. She's a great baker. There's some woman on the block who's a professional cake designer. Woman, like a cake designer, she's really proud of herself. And there's one woman at the Kiddush, every time there's a communal Kiddush, who everybody's raving over her cakes, because she's a professional designer. And this woman wants somebody to acknowledge her cake. Let's say her cake is good, let's say for a frum housewife, you did a good job there. It's a little tilting on one side. The filling boxes aren't quite straight. You're not professional, and you want to be, and you're never going to be, and you know inside you're never going to be. And that hurts. That you have to keep it, realize, hey, I'm not the first person in history to feel this way about something. And don't wear it on your sleeve. Yaakov Avinu, you know where the other 8 years are? Why did Pharaoh ask you? Why did Pharaoh ask you how old you are? He saw it on you. You're accountable for that. You're accountable for your response, and you're accountable for triggering the question. Those 8 words that Pharaoh asks, it's your fault. Your fault. And therefore, he loses 33 years from his life. Very powerful lesson. It has to do with maturity. I think older people, as a person gets a little older in life becomes a little bit clearer. Younger people still have this goal that they're going to get to the state of some sort of utopia in perfection where everything is smooth. It just doesn't happen. It never happens. It never gets there. You take it one day at a time and do the best you can with each day. Okay? Now, so Yaakov Avinu, first of all, Vayechi, we said, equals 34. Now, you'll notice that at the end of Parshat Vayigash, at the end of the Parshat, it says, Vayiyachuz ba vayifru vayirbu me'od. On page 266, it ends with me'od. In a Sefer Torah, there's normally a spacing between one parsha and the next. If you look at the Sefer Torah, when the words Vayechi here, Jeremy's a Baal Koreh. What's the difference between, what happens when you get to the end of Vayigash, before Vayechi? There's... Right, and here there's no gap. In the Sefer Torah, you'll see Parshas Vayechi. Well, you won't see it. I see it because I'm a Kohen. I get the first Aliyah, so I've seen it. So when you go up to Sefer Torah, I don't mean to brag, but if I have the chance, I will. When you see a Sefer, you get the Aliyah. It's the Kohen. The guy's got a point to play. Normally, you get an Aliyah. The guy points to where he's reading, right? If he points to Vayechi, there's no gap. It's right next to the previous word. It says Me'od and then Vayechi. There's no gap between them. So Rashi says over here, Lama Parsha zu Stuma. First Rashi on page 268, right column. Why is this Parsha closed off? Why is it closed off? Satum, it's sealed. It's not got an opening. Lefi shekevan shenifter Yaakov Avinu, once Yaakov Avinu died, nistemu einehem v'libam shel Yisrael mitzoras hashibut sheyizchilu l'shabdam. The Jewish people became somewhat clogged up spiritually because they were started getting oppressed. They became clogged up, number one. Number two, davar acher shebikesh legalos es haketz l'banav. Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal. We'll see later in the parsha when he gives them a bracha, he was going to reveal them the end of time. He was going to reveal when the Mashiach is coming. V'nistam mimenu, it was hidden from him. Yaakov Avinu was not given the permission from on high to reveal the time of the redemption. And therefore the parsha is clogged up. It's sealed. It's closed off from the previous parsha. So one of the commentaries points out, I think Rav Hirsch, says, you know why it's sealed off? Each parsha begins a new episode of growth. Torah wants to communicate an idea. When did Yaakov Avinu achieve maximum growth in his life? Throughout all those years where he had all that aggravation, that's when he grew. The last years, the 17 years, Yaakov lived in Egypt. He was in the base medrash all day. Everything was good. The family was together with Yosef. That's not when your maximum growth. Your maximum growth is when you're in a situation of challenge, when you're in a situation where things are not as easy. Therefore, the Torah seals it off. That's what Rav Hirsch says. Okay. So then Yaakov Avinu gets a little older, and take a look at Pasuk Lamed Aleph. He calls Yosef. Next pasuk. Vayikra Yemei Yisrael Amos. Gets close to his death. Vayikra livno liYosef vayomer lo imna matzazikein benechasin mayotcha tachas yarechi. Put your hand under my thigh. Remember, we've seen this before. Where? Avram and Eliezer. Very good. Ve'asisa imadi ches. It is. It's under the thigh. The thigh is near the area of the bris milah. He doesn't literally put it. When Rashi there said that the reason they swore, he put the hand under the thigh, is because the only item of kedusha that he possessed at that time was a bris milah. So the standard way you swear is you put your hand on a Bible or something, right? You put your hand on a Bible and you swear. So in order to show the severity of what you're doing, you put your hand under the thigh near the area of kedusha. He obviously did not put it on the bris milah. He puts it under the thigh symbolically because it's near the bris milah. We even talk about offspring being yotzei yirecho. The offspring, where we talk about a person's descendants, we say the people who came from his thighs. Right? That's how it's regarded in Hebrew. So he put his hand under the thigh as an oath. And we said because under the thigh represents that the person who you're swearing to, he is in your hands completely. That means I'm depending on you to carry out my will. I'm in your hands. You've got the whole world in his hands, right? I'm in your hands right now. Chesed ve'emes. Do a chesed in truth. Al natzik b'reidim. Don't bury me in Egypt. Yaakov Avinu is concerned he doesn't want to be buried in Chutz La'aretz. There are all sorts of merits to being buried in Eretz Yisrael. A person buried in Chutz La'aretz, when the time comes for the resurrection of the dead, then their bodies are going to roll through the ground to then arise in Eretz Yisrael. There's a whole medrash like that. But Yaakov says, do a chesed ve'emes. I want you to do a kindness. Don't bury me in Egypt. Where should I be buried? V'shachavti mavosai, with my fathers, unsasani mimitzrayim, ukvartani bikvuras. I want you to bury me in the burial place of my father, what we call Maras HaMachpelah. Vayomer anochi esek yirecha. Vayomer yishavali, vayishavali yishtach Yisrael shabita. So Yosef says, swear. Yosef swears. Now, why is it called a chesed? Do a chesed with me. We understand it's a chesed. You're going to bury him. Ve'emes, in truth. So the Gemara says, the chesed that you do with somebody who's deceased is what's called chesed shel emes. The Chevra Kadisha in the Kibili is called the Chesed shel emes committee. Why is that called a chesed shel emes? The answer is, what do you say?
Can't give back.
Can't give back. Every chesed that you do with a person, there's always an anticipation, a kindness. Every act of kindness that you do, every act of kindness that you do, there's always an anticipation. Maybe something will be coming back this way. There's always, even with the greatest motivation, you never know. I heard a story about a guy. This limousine breaks down on the highway. So this Avrech is driving along. He gets out of his car, and the limousine driver is trying to fix the tire. The Avrech happened to know how to fix it. He helps him fix the tire. He speeds things up. The guy asks him his name. Told him his name. Okay. Goes home. The next day, truck pulls up from a florist. Giant bouquet of flowers delivered to the house. There's a note. And the note, he opens up his little envelope. And it says, Ruvain, thanks for the help on the highway yesterday. Appreciate it. I took the liberty of paying off your mortgage. Sincerely, Donald Trump. That was a story that was circulating years ago. This was before Trump became the president. I don't know if the story's true. It was certainly circulating. One thing is for sure. always help limousines with tires, right? If there are two cars broken down on the highway, one is an 11-year-old Chevy and the other one is a limousine. Help the limousine guy. There seems to be your chances of something coming back with the limousine driver seem to be better. You understand? Every time you do a chesed, you never know what's going to happen. There's only one time that there's ever going to be any payback. Chesed shel emes, to help a person who's buried. You bury a person, that person will never be able to pay you back. Maybe his family, maybe he doesn't have family. There's a situation where there's nobody around. That's called a chesed shel emes. That's a chesed shel emes that will never be able to pay you back. There was a story of a guy in New York who was a day school principal, and the day school was $50,000 short on their budget, and there was a threat that they're going to have to close the school the next year. So this guy calls one of his donors, one of his big donors. The guy says, listen, we're having a rough time. He lives in upstate New York. He says, we're having a rough time. You come up, I'll give you $1,000, but I can't, it's anything near what I gave you last year. So the guy doesn't really have a choice, and he goes driving up to upstate New York to get his $1,000, In the meantime, and he's despondent. He figures the school's, it's a goner. And he, as he's driving, he hits a blizzard. There's a blizzard in New York, an upstate New York blizzard, nothing like it. Somewhere in Buffalo, one of these blizzards. So he gets out of his car, can't move. He gets out of his car, and he's just looking for somewhere to go. And he walks along, and he sees like a Magen David on a door, a Star of David. So he pushes the door open, he walks in, and just his luck, bad to worse, he's in a funeral parlor. There's a funeral parlor going on, a handful of people, and some guy, there's a eulogy going on. And so he just sits there, and he just wants to get back to his car so he can get driving, get to his donor. Goes back out. As he walks out, there's a guest book at the funeral, and he signs his name in the guest book, and he walks out, gets in his car, goes to his donor, and he gets his $1,000. Okay? A couple of days later, he gets a letter from a lawyer. It says, Al Goldman died, and he left in his will, he didn't have many friends, that his entire estate should be divided up among anybody who attended his funeral. Right? We noticed your name in the guest book. You were at the funeral. Your share comes to $53,491.12. Right? So he had his budget. Yeah. So sometimes, even the dead could do you a favor. But in general, it's not something you anticipate. It's not something that a person is actually expecting is going to happen. That's why I call it chesed shel emes. Now, there's a very important life lesson here. We have time. Yeah, good. A very important life lesson. Yaakov Avinu comes to Yosef. He's now near the end of his life. And then he says to Yosef the following. In Pasuk Zayin on page 270. Yaakov Avinu summons Yosef again. And he says to him the following. He tells him that Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be tribes like Reuven and Shimon. And the rest of his children are not. The rest of the children that Yosef has, any subsequent children, will not have tribal status. Ephraim and Manasseh are going to have a special place. Then he says to him the following, on Pasuk Zayin, Va'ani bevoi bepadan mesa alai Rachel be'eretz Canaan. Rachel died, bederech bod kivras eretz lavo efraso, where there was just, how does the article translate kivras derech? On the road, well, there's still a stretch of land to go to Ephras. I buried Rachel on the side of the road. I didn't even bring her into the city limits, into the city proper. And Rashi says over here, if you say, take a look at Rashi, it's the right column, 5 learns from the body, from the bottom. Vani bevoi mi padon, ve'afal pi shani matriach alecha. Even though I'm troubling you, lo licheni likaver beretz Canaan, I'm troubling you to bury me in the land of Canaan, which is quite a different distance off from Egypt. V'lo kacha sisi le'imcha. I didn't do that to your mother. Sharei mesa samuch lebeis lechem. She died close to Beis Lechem. He goes on to say that I did it because I had a divine command. I had a divine command to bury her over there. So he says it wasn't rainy and it wasn't anything else. It was al pi hadibur. I was told by Hashem, bury her on the side of the road. So I heard Reb David Soloveitchik from the Brisker dynasty. Why is Yaakov Avinu telling this to Yosef now? Telling Yosef, by the way, I just want to tell you what happened. Why your mother wasn't buried in a more respectable place, even though it wasn't that far. Yet I'm telling you to carry me, schlep me all the way up there. It's Canaan. I was told by God, given divine instruction to bury her over there. Then we find later on that because when the Jewish people go off into exile, Rachel is by her grave, she cries for the Jewish people, and so on and so forth. So I heard a tremendous fundamental in raising children. There's always a problem parents have. How much do you have to explain to kids? Well, it gets tricky because then kids will keep asking about everything. At a certain point, how come you can and I can't? Because I said so. Because I'm daddy. Where's the line over there? Where's the line over there? So it's very difficult to say. It's very difficult to say exactly where the line is. You can't explain everything to kids. How come you get to stay up late and I don't? Listen, how come I work and you don't? And how come I'm married and you're not? And how come I there are a lot of differences between us. This is just one of many, right? But more than that, how come? There's one time where you must explain to kids. One time where you must explain to kids. That's where your behavior contradicts the instructions you're giving them. Then you have to explain it. So, for example, you tell your kid, we learn a halacha, no lashon hara, we don't talk about people, we don't talk about lashon hara, whatever. Then one day your kid comes home from school and he smells like a cigarette. Say, Yankee, who gave you the cigarette? I'd love to tell you, Dad. He's only 9. I'd love to tell you, but it's lashon hara. No, this you have to tell me. That's not good enough. You have to explain to the kid at this point because you're telling him to do something which is explicitly in contradiction to what you've been telling him up until now. You have to explain to him, no. There's a halacha you have to tell me, and that's why I'm allowed to ask you this. Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef, I want you to bury me in the land of Canaan. Why didn't I bury your mother? And he's wondering, gee, that's an interesting request. You want me to schlep you 3 days' journey to the land of Canaan, take your body, my mother 200 meters, you couldn't have carried her into 2,000 meters into a decent city town. That I have to explain to you now. Now I have to explain to you the reason that there's a contradiction. That was a divine request. God said to me, do this over here. That's the difference. And you have to explain as a lesson for parents. When you're doing something contradictory, you have to be able to explain why. Daddy, how come you get to have a smartphone and you told me smartphones are not good? How come you're allowed a smartphone and I'm not? Well, I need it for work. Do you work? No. Okay, that's the difference. Okay. Daddy, how come you tell me not to talk during davening, but you talk during davening? That's a good question, kid. No, that's not the answer. Don't get smart. Don't get smart means daddy doesn't have an answer. Okay? Don't get smart. You say, you know what, you're right, I really shouldn't be talking to davening. That's the best thing you say. Or you say to him, because I'm with Hatzalah, and therefore I have to talk. Somebody came over to me to ask me about a life-threatening situation. Explain it. Don't leave the kid wondering, my father told me not to talk. But if you were allowed to talk, then they have to explain why you're allowed to talk. And if you weren't allowed to talk, be man enough to say to the kid, you know what, I'm wrong. I was wrong. Parents sometimes react where kids says to mom, Mommy, you told us not to talk Lashon Hara. I heard your phone conversation. Why were you talking Lashon Hara? So parents often turn around and turn it back on the kid. Don't be a mechutzev. That's chutzpah, right? That's a lame response. The response to you know what? You're absolutely right. I did the wrong thing. You don't like the kid's tone of voice. Big deal. There's something much worse just happened. You contradicted the instructions you give to your kid. You're the criminal here, not the child. Then you could talk to the child later about, maybe when that happens in the future, just speak a little more respectfully. But don't make that the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is that you did the wrong thing. All right, to be continued.